In a bustling city where wealth and power often hide behind unassuming faces, a single moment in a high-end department store sparked a chain of events that no one could have predicted. It was a crisp morning when a white store manager, driven by a mix of arrogance and ignorance, raised his hand and slapped a black woman across the face, oblivious of the fact that she was not just a customer, but the billionaire owner of the entire store. What unfolded in the aftermath was a story of justice, redemption, and the shattering of assumptions that would leave everyone in the store and beyond reeling. The incident took place in the flagship location of Elegance Emporium, a luxury retail chain known for its opulent displays and elite clientele. The store was a beacon of sophistication, its polished marble floors gleaming under chandeliers, and its shelves stocked with designer goods that whispered wealth. On this particular morning, the store was alive with a hum of shoppers, the soft clink of hangers, and the low murmur of sales associates catering to their every whim. Among them was Marcus Reed, the store manager, a man in his mid-40s with a crisp suit and a reputation for running a tight ship. Marcus had been with Elegance Emporium for over a decade, climbing the ranks through a combination of charm and ruthless efficiency. He prided himself on his ability to read people, to know who belonged to his store and who didn't. But that morning, his judgment would fail him in a way he could never have imagined. The woman at the center of the storm was Amara Kingston, a name that carried weight in boardrooms and financial circles, but was unknown to most of the store staff. Amara was in her late 30s, with a quiet elegance that didn't scream wealth but rather exuded it in subtle ways. A tailored blazer, a simple yet exquisite watch, and a calm confidence that seemed to draw people in. She had built Elegance Emporium from a single boutique into a global empire, her sharp business acumen and relentless drive turning her vision into a billion-dollar reality. Yet, despite her success, Amara preferred to stay out of the spotlight, often visiting her stores incognito to observe operations and ensure her standards were met. She believed in leading by example, not by flaunting her power. On this morning, Amara had entered the store dressed casually, her hair pulled back in a neat bun, her face free of heavy makeup. She carried a simple tote bag, blending in with the other shoppers as she moved through the aisles, her eyes scanning the displays with a practiced eye. She noticed a few things: a misaligned rack, a sales associate distracted by their phone, a customer struggling to find assistance, and made mental notes to address them later. Amara was meticulous, her attention to detail part of what had made her stores the gold standard in luxury retail. She had no intention of revealing her identity. She never did during these visits. But fate had other plans. Marcus, stationed near the women's apparel section, had been watching Amara from a distance. To him, she didn't fit the profile of the store's typical clientele. Her casual attire, her unhurried pace, and the fact that she was black in a space where most shoppers were not raised a red flag in his mind. Marcus had dealt with his share of shoplifters and troublemakers over years, and something about Amara set off his instincts. He didn't know why. Exactly. Perhaps it was the way she lingered near the expensive handbags, her fingers brushing the leather as if testing its quality. Perhaps it was the way she seemed too comfortable, too at ease in a place where most customers carried an air of entitlement. Whatever it was, Marcus decided she needed to be watched. He approached her with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Excuse me, ma'am," he said, his tone polite but edged with suspicion. "Can I help you find something, or are you just browsing?" Amara turned to him, her expression calm but her eyes sharp. "Just looking, thank you," she replied, her voice steady. She turned back to the display, dismissing him without a second glance. Marcus bristled. He wasn't used to being brushed off, especially not in his store. He stepped closer, his voice lowering. "You know, we have a lot of high-value items here. If you're not planning to purchase, I'd suggest you move along." Amara's brow furrowed slightly, but she didn't look at him. "I'm fine, thank you," she said, her tone still even but with a hint of steel. She picked up a handbag, examining its stitching with the eye of someone who knew quality. Marcus's patience snapped. He'd had a long morning, dealing with a shipment delay and a demanding customer earlier, and this woman's casual dismissal felt like a personal affront. "Look," he said, his voice rising just enough to draw attention from nearby shoppers. "If you're not here to buy, you need to leave. We don't tolerate loitering." Amara set the handbag down and turned to face him fully, her eyes locking onto his. "I'm not loitering," she said, her voice low but firm. "I'm a customer, just like anyone else." Marcus scoffed, his frustration boiling over. "A customer? Please. I know your type. You think you can come in here, touch everything, and walk out with something that doesn't belong to you. I've seen it 100 times." The accusation hung in the air, sharp and ugly. A few shoppers nearby paused, their heads turning to watch the exchange. Amara's jaw tightened, but she kept her composure. "You're making a mistake," she said quietly. "I suggest you back off." Marcus's face reddened. He wasn't used to being challenged, especially not in front of an audience. His pride, his authority, fell under attack. Without thinking, driven by a mix of anger and entitlement, he raised his hand and slapped Amara across the face. The sound echoed in the quiet store, a sharp crack that silenced the murmurs around them. Gasps rippled to the crowd as Amara stumbled back, her hand flying to her cheek. For a moment, time seemed to freeze. Marcus stood there, his hand still raised, his chest heaving as he realized what he'd done. Amara straightened, her eyes blazing with a fire that made Marcus take an involuntary step back. The shoppers around them were frozen, some with hands over their mouths, others pulling out their phones to record. The air was thick with shock and tension. "You have no idea who you just touched," Amara said, her voice low and controlled, but carrying a weight that sent a chill down Marcus's spine. She didn't raise her voice, didn't scream or cry. Instead, she reached into her tote bag and pulled out a slim card holder, flipping it open to reveal a badge that bore the Elegance Emporium logo and her name, Amara Kingston, CEO and owner. Marcus's face drained of color. He opened his mouth to speak, but no words came out. The shoppers around him began to whisper, the realization spreading like wildfire. This wasn't just a customer. This was a woman who owned the entire company, the one whose vision and wealth had built the very store they were standing in. Amara didn't wait for Marcus to recover. She turned to a nearby sales associate, a young woman who looked as stunned as everyone else. "Call security," Amara said calmly, "and get the district manager here. Now." The associate nodded, fumbling with her radio as she hurried to comply. Marcus finally found his voice, stammering, I didn't know. I thought." "You thought wrong." Amara cut him off, her tone icy. "You assumed, and you acted on that assumption without a shred of evidence. You just made the biggest mistake of your career." Security arrived within minutes. 2 uniformed guards who looked confused but followed Amara's instructions without question. The district manager, a woman named Carla Bennett, arrived shortly after, her face pale as she took in the scene. Carla had met Amara only once before at a corporate retreat, but she recognized her immediately. "Ms. Kingston," she said, her voice trembling. "What happened?" Amara recounted the incident in a calm, measured tone, her words precise and unembellished. She didn't need to exaggerate. The truth was damning enough. Carla listened, her eyes darting to Marcus, who stood frozen, his hands clenched at his sides. When Amara finished, Carla turned to Marcus, her expression a mix of disbelief and fury. "Marcus, you're suspended, effective immediately," Carla said. "Hand over your badge and leave the premises. We'll deal with this formally later." Marcus's mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water. "Carla, please, I didn't know." "Save it," Carla snapped. "You assaulted someone. It doesn't matter who she is. Get out." As security escorted Marcus away, the crowd began to disperse, though many lingered, whispering and recording. Amara remained where she was, her hand still resting lightly on her cheek where the slap had landed. She could feel the sting, but it was nothing compared to the anger burning inside her. This wasn't just about her. It was about every person who had ever been judged, dismissed, or mistreated because of how they looked or where they came from. She had built Elegance Emporium to be a place of beauty and inclusion, and yet here, in her own store, prejudice had reared its ugly head. Carla approached Amara, her face etched with concern. "Ms. Kingston, I'm so sorry. I had no idea this could happen. What can I do?" Amara took a deep breath, her composure unshaken. I want a full investigation, she said. I want to know how someone like Marcus was allowed to manage one of my stores. I want to know what training your staff receives on customer service and bias. And I want a public statement from Elegance Emporium addressing this incident, making it clear that we do not tolerate discrimination of any kind. Carla nodded, jotting down notes on her phone. Of course, Miss Kingston. I'll start on this immediately. And are you okay? Amara's lips curved into a small, tight smile. I've dealt with worse, she said. But I won't let this slide. Not in my store. As Carla hurried off to begin damage control, Amara walked through the store, her presence now drawing stares and whispers. She didn't care. She had work to do. Over the next few hours, she met with the store staff, speaking to them directly about what had happened. She didn't sugarcoat it, didn't shy away from the uncomfortable truth. She told them about her vision for Elegance Emporium, about her own journey as a black woman in a world that often tried to diminish her. She spoke of the importance of treating every person with respect, regardless of how they looked or what assumptions might be made about them. The staff listened, some with tears in their eyes, others nodding in agreement. For many, it was the first time they'd heard directly from the woman who had created the empire they worked for. Amara's words were powerful, not because she was their boss, but because they came from a place of authenticity and experience. She wasn't just a billionaire. She was someone who had fought for every inch of her success, who understood the weight of prejudice and the power of standing up to it. By the end of the day, news of the incident had spread beyond the store. Social media